Most people don't hate themselves outright, but they live like they do, always fixing, always optimizing, always running from who they are now towards someone they're not even sure they want to become. It's subtle. It sounds like discipline. It looks like ambition. But underneath it all is one quiet belief that who you are right now is not enough. Let's look deeper. We are raised to chase something: grades, praise, applause, money, meaning. And underneath each chase is a whisper: you don't have it yet. And slowly this turns into something far more dangerous. You are not it yet. You internalize a sense of lack, as if you were born with a hole in your soul that only success can fill. So you begin the ritual of modern self-worth. Fix, improve, compare, repeat. You try to solve a problem that never really existed because no one told you the truth. You were never broken. You just forgot how to sit still with yourself. At first, the path seems noble. You want to grow, evolve, be better. But soon, better becomes a moving target. No matter how much you read, meditate, journal, hustle, there's always more to fix. You begin to feel guilt for resting, shame for slowing down. Even peace feels like laziness. You confuse healing with achievement. You confuse transformation with performance. You are addicted to becoming because you are afraid of simply being. But growth that is driven by shame is not growth. It is self-rejection in disguise. And no amount of progress will satisfy a mind at war with itself. At first, the path seems noble. You want to grow, evolve, be better. But soon, better becomes a moving target. No matter how much you read, meditate, journal, hustle, there's always more to fix. You begin to feel guilt for resting, shame for slowing down. Even peace feels like laziness. You confuse healing with achievement. You confuse transformation with performance. You are addicted to becoming because you are afraid of simply being. But growth that is driven by shame is not growth. It is self-rejection in disguise. And no amount of progress will satisfy a mind at war with itself. Real change doesn't begin with shame. It begins with awareness, noticing the stories you've inherited, the voices that aren't yours, the rules you never agreed to. Real change doesn't sound like, I need to fix myself. It sounds like, I want to understand myself. It's not about adding layers. It's about peeling them back. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The most radical act in this world isn't to climb higher. It's to come home. What if the moments where nothing is happening are the moments you are actually healing? Not because you're doing anything, but because you've stopped running. We've been taught that stillness is failure, that rest is weakness, that if you're not building, fixing, growing, you're wasting time. But nature doesn't rush. The seasons don't hustle. A tree doesn't force itself to bloom. And yet everything happens in its own time. You are not a machine. You are a rhythm, a cycle, a breath. Your value doesn't increase when you are productive, and it doesn't decrease when you are not. This is a hard question because many of us are attached to our struggle. It gives us a purpose, a project, something to wake up to. But what if the goal wasn't to win the war inside your head, but to stop fighting it? What if healing was not a process of doing more, but a process of letting go? Of no longer arguing with what is, of meeting your sadness, your fear, your confusion, not as enemies, but as guests. Not everything needs to be resolved. Some things just want to be held. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Peace is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's what you are, beneath all the noise. But we've gotten so used to the noise that silence feels uncomfortable. So we create drama, set goals, stir the pot, not because we want chaos, but because we're terrified of what remains when the chaos is gone. Who are you without the chase? Who are you without the noise? What if nothing is missing? What if you don't need to become someone new, but learn to love someone ancient, someone you've always been? There's a point where the searcher starts to feel heavier than the problem, not because you found what you were looking for, but because you realize Maybe the search itself is the thing keeping you lost. You don't reach this point through a breakthrough, not through a book or a perfect morning routine. It's quieter than that. It comes in the middle of a normal day. You catch yourself chasing something again, a new method, a new goal, a new way to become more of whatever you think you should be. But instead of following the impulse, you pause. And for the first time in a while, you don't reach for the next step. You just stay. There's no applause, no progress bar, just a kind of stillness that doesn't ask for anything. And inside that stillness, a realization begins to take shape. I don't want to keep running. This isn't dramatic. It doesn't come with speeches or tears. It's a quiet shift, a change in posture, less tension, less trying. You don't even know what to call it. Only that the effort to fix yourself has started to feel like its own kind of trap. You've spent so long trying to become someone better, you forgot to ask whether that version of you even exists, or if you're just inventing them as a way to avoid who you are now. You notice how much of your life has been spent reacting to the fear of being not enough, and how many of your choices were made not out of clarity, but out of compensation. And suddenly there's this strange possibility you hadn't considered before, that maybe there's nothing wrong with you. This thought doesn't feel comfortable at first. In fact, it almost feels irresponsible. Because if you stop improving, what happens? What will fall apart? Who will you disappoint? But the truth is, you've already done all of that. You've disappointed others. You've let yourself down. You've succeeded and still felt empty. So the idea of finally being still, of doing nothing to earn your right to exist, isn't terrifying anymore. It's starting to make sense. Because maybe the person you've been trying to become was never meant to be reached. Maybe they were just a placeholder for a feeling you didn't know how to name. This is what returning feels like. Not a triumph, not an escape, but a quiet refusal to keep abandoning yourself. You stop seeing your life as a series of improvements, and you start seeing it as a series of moments. Some clear, some confusing, all real. You begin to notice the small things again. The way light moves on your wall in the afternoon. The way your body breathes when you're not thinking about it. The way silence feels less like absence and more like a kind of presence. You don't feel healed. You don't feel enlightened. But you do feel here. And somehow that's enough. You start to look at effort differently. Not as proof of your worth, but as a tool to be used when needed. And not all the time. You stop trying to win every internal argument. You allow yourself to leave things unresolved. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop measuring your day by how productive it was. You realize how much energy it takes to constantly monitor yourself, to be your own critic, your own boss, your own motivator, your own judge. And when you finally put all that down, you're surprised by what's left. Not laziness, not failure, just space. The kind of space where you can actually hear your own thoughts without needing to fix them. Some days are still hard. You still feel the urge to chase, to prove, to become. But now you see it for what it is, a reflex, not a truth. And slowly, those urges lose their power. Not because you fight them, but because you stop feeding them. You begin to move through your life without armor. You begin to trust your pace. You begin to let yourself change without making it a project. You're no longer trying to turn yourself into someone else. You're just learning how to be in relationship with who you already are. And that's not settling. That's returning. The most surprising part, nothing outside you changes that much. The world keeps spinning. People keep talking. The internet keeps shouting. But you don't need it to stop anymore because you're not using it to distract yourself. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need to explain your piece. You don't need to name what you're doing. You're not performing it. You're living it. And that difference is everything. This isn't a finish line. There is no arrival. The return isn't about finding some stable version of yourself that always knows what to do. It's about building the capacity to be with yourself when you don't know, when it's uncertain, when it's messy. It's not perfection. It's not even clarity. It's honesty and presence. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what's here with me? You listen more to yourself, to others, not to respond, but to understand. And in that listening, you begin to recognize the quiet hum of life that was always underneath all the noise. The return is not an event, it's a practice, a gentle turning back to what's real again and again. And every time you do, you lose a little of the urge to chase, not because you don't care, but because you found something that matters more, something steadier, less dramatic, more real. You begin to value your own attention, your own time, your own way of being. And in doing so, you begin to live, not for approval, but for truth. And truth is rarely loud, rarely exciting, rarely brandable, but it's yours, and it's enough.